Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, just a quick apology. I'm normally a bit earlier than this with my reports in the morning, but for the third time in October, agweather.com, the AWS system that powers it has gone down, and I'm still trying to investigate what's going on there. So it's been a lot of the morning trying to work on that, and unfortunately, it's pushed me a bit later to get you a report, but I'll tell you some of the stuff I'm fascinated about right now. And this is this graphic you've been looking at here for the last few moments. It's the one that shows you from today all the way through the next 15 days, kind of how the tropics are breathing. Now, what we've been discussing is how things are stacked up vertically on this graphic, which means the tropics are very stuck. They're not, the tropical features are not moving a lot, which means if this is one of our strongest teleconnections on the pattern throughout the rest of October and November, we've got to pay attention to it. And this is what I'm talking about. The MJO is stuck, okay? So what you've got right here is subsidence in this area. You've got another band of it right in through here, sitting in this area. And everywhere in between there is rising. So it's going up over Africa, it's going up over phase 8 of the MJO. And right now it's going up just in the next few days, quite very supportive of rising motion, almost right over Mexico. So if you kind of follow this down, you'll see that it's sitting right kind of in this general area. Now, we have big questions. How long does it stay like this? And I think a lot of this is going to depend on how long the Indian Ocean dipole remains as positive as it is. But what you can see is that the Indian Ocean dipole has started to make the turn back down, which is typical. I mean, last time it was up this high was back in 2019. And here it is kind of making this turn right back down again, almost kind of on cue. But we will likely still have several more months, at least two to three, I should say, of a highly influential trade wind pattern dominated by what's going on here. So this is it. See this right here? This blue-green color represents very strong trade winds in this particular region. And then what you got over here are these westerly wind bursts that are associated, that's the reds, that are associated with El Nino. And the two things working together are just, they're not changing too much right now. So that begs a few questions about what the pattern's going to be like across North America, across South America, across the world. And it's going to be the mainstay of our discussion for probably the next 2-3 weeks, maybe even longer than that, as we wait to see if something begins to budge either in the tropics or starts to move in the extratropics or the Arctic regions to really influence us. But one of the things that I'm finding fascinating is if I come back to this graphic and I show you where that rising motion is strongest right now, like right over here, that is where we've also been building tropical systems. I mean, watch this animation from yesterday. This is another tropical system. That was a sun setting last night that hit category 5 in strength. I believe it's called Otis. I should have looked that up here real quick. I was just fascinated by what it looked like, didn't care so much what its name was. Otis. Hit category 5 in strength last night and just went right into Mexico. And we've been talking about Mexico on and off throughout the summer and now into fall because of how dry it's been, getting all the way down to the Panama Canal. That's been a discussion we've had down here as well about the ongoing drought. But it's interesting to see that Norma and now where Otis is going in here, we're starting to just bring in better moisture into parts of Mexico that have been just absolutely scorched with drought throughout much of this summer. And we cannot ignore Mexico as a powerhouse in terms of agriculture. And for many of us in the United States, we know that a lot of the produce that we eat, that we buy in our grocery stores, comes from Mexico. So it's quite important to be seeing, just seeing what's going on here with their ongoing drought situation. Now, unlike Norma, which the moisture from Norma made it all the way through Texas and it made it all the way to Illinois last night. It rained in Illinois from Norma last night. I don't expect that to happen with Otis. And I also don't expect Tammy, which just got a beautiful view of Tammy as the sun rose this morning. This is just fantastic. Look at the back side, really the northern side of Tammy just getting sheared off here. Look at that large cloud shield. I always find this fascinating. Tammy's not going to be an issue for the United States. And we just looked here at the animation. Let's let this reset. Here's Tammy this morning. There it goes. And you can see it's just getting squashed by these subtropical ridges and just spread out. And the potential path of what's left of Tammy, I don't know which way it's going to go. And I'm honestly not too focused on analyzing it because of how dominant the southeastern ridge is going to be in the movement of this, and I'm not necessarily expecting it to be a major influence on Florida right now either. There's just a lot of uncertainty with where it's going to go. So my focus has primarily been on this. This is the last 10 to 12 hours or so of radar across the country. We watched yesterday, again, I mentioned the risk of the stronger storms in this area, but these were hailers in here. Low top supercells producing hail. And there is so much to be learned about the way the atmosphere produces hail. And I want to kind of praise the research of a guy named Cameron Nixon, who is out there kind of rewriting the playbook on what we understand about hail. That's not to undermine the research done by just an absolute brilliant woman named Nancy Knight, just a brilliant scientist who was one of our first pioneering women that studied this. But Cameron is helping us really understand with some modern tech what these things are up to, since Nancy has long since retired after her incredible contributions to the field of atmospheric sciences. Okay, sorry, this is all snow. It came through the northwest. It's into Montana. What we've got here is moisture from Norma combining with a little bit of Gulf moisture. That's what's raining across parts of Missouri, Illinois, getting it all the way into Michigan and Indiana. And then we watch a pretty long line of storms develop in the overnight hours through parts of Texas. Again, sub-severe, but putting on quite a bit of lighting. I'll show you in a second. But it's just looking here at this hail. These were the reports from yesterday. We had 40 reports of hail, a couple of wind reports down here in New Mexico and Texas. But these storms, again, under a marginal risk. Some of them putting down, look at this, 2 to 2.25 inch hail in parts of Wisconsin. Mosinee, 2 inches, that's in Marathon County. And then we saw over here in Minnesota, take a look, a couple of 2 to 2.5 inch hailstones in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota, Brown County. Just golf ball size, tennis ball size hail. And this morning, this is where we're watching the storms. This is the newest Blitzer tongue lightning data. So stretching from Kansas through Oklahoma down into Texas, we're watching some pretty, decent storm complexes roll through, bringing in some early morning lightning and thunder. All right, here's the big show. Okay, this is what we're keeping an eye on. We've watched wave number 1. That was the one I apologize for misnumbering so many times yesterday. It's moved out. See it here? This is the second deeper wave that's coming into the northwest, and it's blurry over here on the edge because this is GOES 16, which is what we call GOES East, so it can't see the limb out here very well. But we're looking at this low moving through the northwest, and that one's going to eject. And then there is a third one. It's diving down out of the north here. See it? Just the very tip of it right there. That one's going to be coming out later this weekend into the Rocky Mountains in the southern plains. So taking a look here at the current all hazards weather map, we've now watched the National Weather Service expand its winter storm warnings, covering a large section of Montana, getting here into North Dakota. And this extends. We have flood watches out for parts of Texas and Oklahoma. We're going to again see this corridor open up around a larger ridge. Remember, we've talked a lot about that southeast ridge. So this will be the corridor over which we expect to see multiple rounds of rain. And we'll wait on this to update later on this morning because this only goes through midnight, but this is the latest snowfall map. And we're just seeing in here, that last night we did see, places that picked up a few inches of snow, some places up to 4 to 6 inches by midnight. And of course, it's been snowing since then. Our latest update from the WPC, let's blow this up and have a closer look. This is just through the next 72 hours. What the chances are of grabbing another 4 inches of snow. So highest right in through here, that's over a 90% chance of grabbing 4 inches of snow. If we step that up to 8, it's primarily Yellowstone, and then through this part of North Dakota, getting into parts of Manitoba and Ontario, we can go up to 12 inches. And again, just take a look. We've got a better than 50% chance of picking up a foot of snow, according to the National Weather Service, right in through this area and also through parts of Yellowstone. Now, again, with my site being down, I'm going to rely on another outstanding website, weatherbell.com. I love this one. And we're just going to go through and we're going to have a quick look at the models. So this is the 0Z run from the GFS, putting down where we're expecting snow for the next 7 days. So remember, the wave that's coming through here right now, that one ejects. There's the second wave, which comes much deeper. That's the one that's giving us the snow in Colorado and possibly spreading it into parts of Nebraska and Iowa. But let's go show you what the new ECMWF is. So that's the GFS. Here's the ECMWF. And a couple of things to take note of here. Sorry, let's compare apples to apples here and go back to the 0Z run. There we go. Is that I noticed that the ECMWF has a bit more snow in this corridor than the than the GFS does. And I think that's because it's bringing in a slower wave here. And as a result, it's being able to tap into some more colder air, turning some of this more over to snow. Now, one quick thing. I always tell you that on my maps, I make the switch over to blue at 4 inches. That's not the case with Weatherbell's maps. We use a similar color bar, but they make the switch at 2 inches. So when you look in this is kind of a 2 to 5 inch event, which would be mostly shaded gray on my maps. So I just want to make that clear here. We do expect with the really cold air that comes in around the back side of this, that maybe to see some of our first lake effect snow coming off the Great Lakes as well, once we see where this system is going to be heading here. So that's my latest update on the snowfall forecast, from the models. Let's go have a look and see what the total rainfall is. 0Z European model. I will say this, the biggest changes that I have noticed in the forecast from system number 1, so I'm just going to take you out to Saturday morning, is kind of the eastward extent of the heaviest rain. You see earlier forecast runs were putting more of this heavier rain almost to the Mississippi and Ohio River, and this has been an area that has essentially, I think, bought a little bit more time before the heavier rain gets there. This, of course, being the heaviest corridor, and we talked about all this being snow. So this is, again, with system number 1, the big one that's coming through right here. Now, the one that follows it this weekend, keep an eye right here. Okay, so what gets added is going to be added coming out of Colorado into Nebraska. See that? That's the second system on Sunday that shows up. And then it rolls farther to the east, takes much colder air with it, fills in some of that gap I had highlighted, but we are going to stay drier in the southeast throughout much of the next 7-8 days. It's not going to be until we get into the first day of October that we bring a front, first day of November, that we bring a front through this area, finally bringing in some precipitation. Total precipitation, that goes out, so let's just leave it there at noon on Wednesday the 1st. I'm going to flip this over to the GFS. We have the 6Z run-in that'll take us out that far. And you see overall a pretty similar pattern. What's different is the GFS is not as wet into this corridor as we're seeing with the with the European model overall. So heaviest rains in through here. Okay, next look. Let's go to the upper levels just to kind of see the evolution of the pattern. So remember, there was our cutoff to the south. This one's getting pulled through. This is the big system I mentioned today that's going to race through. And we're going to watch this other wave come around the back side of it here over this omega pattern that's going to be kind of our last and our kicker wave at the very end. See, it's right there. Doesn't look like much. So the first short wave by tomorrow morning is out. It's in parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, so it's right here. The deeper one is still moving through the Pacific Northwest, right over the Rocky Mountains, and then it ejects. It's sitting there now, and this is the third and final wave we're going to be watching. All three of these have to roll over this big southeast ridge until this elongated trough on Sunday morning starts to finally have enough push to get through it. So our omega block begins to open. What we get is by Sunday into Monday, this is the really Arctic air that comes funneling in after this. And here we are into Monday into Tuesday, and that really just settles into the east. It's reinforced by a deep trough of air that's going to be sitting over the Hudson Bay here, and that's going to bring in some really cold conditions for a few days. Now, after this, all of the models continue to show that by the time we get into the 2nd, 3rd, 4th of the month, probably around the 4th, the pattern opens up to some stronger winds coming off the Pacific, which means we're going to watch the west go wetter, but we lose some of our high amplitude features across the country, meaning more zonal flow, less intense cold air behind this, although major warm up out ahead of it. And we kind of just let the pattern chill out in the Midwest for a little bit while the West re-engages. So to show you how all this goes down, I'm going to show you the, again, from Weatherbell, the European model run from this morning. I like the way both models are handling this. I think the Europeans got a better idea on the timing. So let's kind of walk through it. As we play through this Wednesday morning, getting out into this afternoon and this evening and then into tomorrow, this is how things shape up by Thursday morning. There's your high pressure cell. There's your flow around it. Could see some storms into this corridor. Here's your next round of snow coming out of Idaho, maybe Nevada, Utah, Yellowstone, and then into North Dakota. Now, as we see the snow piling up in North Dakota, especially throughout the day tomorrow, this goes all the way to tomorrow night in through Friday morning. That's when this first system, the big one coming through here, is going to finally get out. Now what follows it, it's hard to see here, but see all this high pressure? This is just pushing the temperature gradient farther and farther to the south. So the upper level low that's sneaking through here has got to sit on the southern side of that temperature gradient, which means it's going to emerge right here. So this is now getting into Sunday. See, there it is starting to form. There's the low. This is Saturday afternoon into Sunday. That low's much farther to the south, increases the snow chances on the back side. Your heavier rain is sitting right out on the east side, running over that ridge. It's just really a good textbook case of cold air intruding and where the new low has to form on the frontal boundary. It's a frontogenetical process. That is a word I think we made up in atmospheric sciences, but it means the making of a front. We get out there to Monday and we see this rain stretching. It pushes east by Tuesday, tries to bring in some rainfall here, but there is just some big time high pressure and cold air sinking in behind this. But it's temporary. It's a few days of it, but it's going to get really cold. Single digits, maybe below zero in Montana. We're going to get possibly temperatures down into the teens temporarily for a section of the country and through here. And it's going to be a shot of some really, really Arctic air. And you can see this is out there on Halloween, the morning of. Look at this high pressure cell right in through here. That is a monster coming through. Okay, probabilities here. This is the chance of an inch of snow from the European model. Okay, so we're just kind of trying to hone in on where the snow is going to be. So best chance of an inch of snow is shown here. I would say that the biggest change has been the probabilities increasing in this area from the second one. This is the wave on Sunday that comes out in Colorado. We do see increased chances for lake effect as well. Here's the chance of 3 inches of snow. Now we start to just hone in on our heaviest snowfall corridor. This is the chances of 6 inches. Really tight into there. Again, this is the system that I talked about today, tomorrow, and Friday coming out. Then this is the best chance of a foot of snow. So we're looking right here in parts of North Dakota, Yellowstone, pockets in the northern Rockies and Cascades, and this extends into southern Manitoba and into Ontario. And anything out there at 18 inches, not really seeing it up except for up around Hudson Bay. All right. Okay, when we look at the wet side of this, this is the best chance at an inch. This is the best chance at 2 inches. So we just keep identifying a couple of these corridors in through here. And here's the best chance at 4 inches. So this could be our wettest possible corridor based on the European ensemble. Now what's important about all of this, if you just look at where this rainfall is expected over the next 7 to 10 days, is it's going to be hitting the headwaters of the Mississippi River, which has recently made a little bit of a recovery. Look at the bottom side of this graphic over here on the right. It's at negative 9.86 feet right now. And if you just think about where that heavy rain's coming through, this is going to be hitting some of our driest soils throughout the Mississippi Basin. Now, it's not necessarily down here across the lower Mississippi Basin, but we're hitting this region with decent precipitation. My big questions are, does the Pacific Jet just keep maintaining this extended view for a while? I think that if, go back to the beginning, if we just keep the MJO looking like this, there's good reason to think that the MJO keeps its extension and maybe even has a bit of a equatorward shift, as you see here. And the result of that is, by the time we get out there to like the 5th and 6th of November, the jet stream's kind of coming around and it opens up and brings in a bit of zonal flow. So we're kind of flooding the country with a bit of Pacific air. But this is going to hit the western United States and bring in the next week on of precipitation. So I looked out there and our next 5 days looks like this. We've already talked about it. Then we go out there day 5 through 10 and it looks something like that. This is kind of the reset time period. So it's cooler and drier behind this. But you see this nosing in here? Watch day 10 through 15. All the moisture begins to just push back into the west. We'll have to just see how this gets over the Rocky Mountains, okay, to see if we get any lee cyclogenesis, which is the building of low pressure centers on the lee side of the Rocky Mountains. That will be yet to be seen once we get out there past the 5th and 6th of November. All right, when we think about the longer range, and again, I'm going to provide you with a more in-depth long range on Friday. That's kind of just the cadence we're on right now. I do want to mention that the newest European model, going all the way out to the end of November, continues to paint the west wetter, and it keeps the central United States a bit more active. I actually don't really see any major areas on this map that I would suggest have a November that just keeps building in on drought. And I'll be looking forward to tomorrow getting the new drought monitor and kind of seeing where we've recently seen some changes and how we could expect that map to change a week from now. All right, on the temperature side of it, I apologize. I don't have access to my maps this morning, so I got to show you this a little differently. You've already seen these. We look at these a lot. But here's your next 5 days, and then there's the cold air coming in day 5 through 10. Now watch the mild Pacific air come pushing into the west day 10 through 15 as the jet stream lines out and zones out. And because of that, look at this. We see a lot of the country experiencing those mild conditions returning. This would be the beginning of November. That's quite common. I mean, we know this fall, temperatures fluctuate a lot in this particular setup. You can see, though, where the snow-filled air is staying pretty chilly here, snow-covered ground, I should say, in parts of North Dakota. We'll have to see how long that snow can hang around in that area. But I wanted to get some probability maps going for you. As I'm looking out there at the kind of greatest extent for the risk of that really cold air coming in, it's hot right now in the midsection of the country. In fact, we might get temperatures way up into the 80s in parts of the Midwest by Friday. But this is after it's all done. You notice out here next Tuesday, I mean, this is the chance next Tuesday of getting a temperature below 32 Fahrenheit. I mean, we're almost to 100% everywhere you see this deepest shade of red. And that really cold air is just going to continue to penetrate throughout the center of the country until you get out here farther and the mild air returns. So you see, this is the chance of having a temperature below 32 degrees Fahrenheit by the time we get to the 6th of November. So our temperatures are on a bit of a roller coaster ride right now, but that's expected given what the jet stream's up to. Okay, a couple of things to finish up with here. I want to take you to South America, and you're looking here at a 7-day precipitation total map. This is all satellite-derived rainfall. You can see the flooding rains we've had down here, but I want you to take a look farther to the north where we've seen a lot of heat in the last 7 to 10 days, and there are pockets in through here that are this shade, which represents no precipitation. There are places that have been missing out on this, and this has been a bit of a challenging forecast to kind of see how much of this area has been drier given how fast the planting progress has been. Well, the long story short is this. The newest European model continues to show the driest conditions over the Amazon. So this is all rainforest. We get a transition as you just move south out of this area into farm fields, into Mato Grosso here. It's expected to get better precipitation east, South America, or Brazil is, but still the flooding rains continue to be problematic for Paraguay, southern Mato Grosso do Sul, parts of Paraná, even up here into Sao Paulo, Santa Catarina, and northern Rio Grande do Sul. Possibly some better rains coming out of Buenos Aires over toward Cordoba, but overall I would say that most of Argentina continues to run the risk of seeing drier than average conditions. And we've seen the models overpromise on rainfall in Argentina, which means this long-standing drought problem we've had in Argentina will likely continue into the foreseeable future. So again, I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope to restore agweather.com later today once the Amazon services are restored. But I apologize for that. But we'll get that going for you again and try to get it a bit more stable. It's been stable for 18 months, and all of a sudden in October we lose it. So we'll get this figured out. Have a good one, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.